all honesty, I was a paranoid, stressed, anxious wreck last Christmas. And the best decision I've ever made is doing a job, decking, that I have complete control over.
Welcome everybody and welcome to the Outside Crowd. So I'm here with our lovely crowd. Oh, that's Ryan.
Yo!
Jake.
Hello.
Billy.
Hiya.
And today we're talking about a lot of the trials and tribulations and the things that can affect us when we run our business. And I think most of us agree that when we started running our businesses, we all thought it was going to be lots of, enjoyment and pleasure, but there's another side to it as well. There's lots of challenges and lots of things that we may not have thought about at the time. So this might lead us on to, the challenges, how it affects us on site, how we cope, what we should maybe be looking out for on site to try and help everybody, and what makes a good team such that you can all work together so that everyone feels safe, secure and in a good supportive environment, because we want everyone to be loving and happy in our beautiful outdoor crowd. So if we're starting and throwing it out to the team, what do you think are the things that were hardest about running a business? What caused the most challenges to you when you actually started that you may not have thought about to start with? Who wants to go? Jay.
Me. Okay, so when I decided to start a limited company, I didn't quite realise the financial side of things, the corporation tax, the VAT, the massive changes when it comes to finances, because I just wasn't prepared for those numbers and how to deal with them. And we did then have to invest in an accountant that's not a cheap accountant, but like a very good accountant that costs money, well worth their money. But it just wasn't a cost I ever thought that I would be spending when I was younger and mowing lawns. When I delved into the limited company world and an actual company business, we have to then also employ people that aren't seen. They're not on the tools, but they are in the background and the making of the company. Yeah. But they have to somehow be incorporated in your cost. And it was stressful when I first started, and suddenly I had to incorporate yard rent, the storage, the extra vehicles, the extra taxes, MOTs, everything with a growing business that I just wasn't ready for. And I must admit, finances when I first started were a real struggle to keep on top of, but to also win enough work to pay the bills, but also enough money made to pay your bills at home, to keep your home life like healthy. And it was a real struggle to start with, and yes, it's something you pick up, but you don't expect to.
But you weren't expecting that sort of thing.
It was quite a shock when I had to sit down with the accountant, and they said,
how much?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Your corporation, plus your personal, plus CIS bills, plus all of this stuff. I just wasn't ready.
Is that all mine? No, that's a tax bill.
Yeah, and it's differentiating the money in the bank. Being a company, you're not always stopped your tax, and you're almost holding that money, and you're looking at a pot of money that isn't yours, and that might not be due for 6 months, that money, and you just can't touch that money. As tempting as it can be in situations where
sometimes you
might need to dip into it. It's good and it's good if you can use it as a float, and you can, but it's keeping on top of it and making sure that it's topped back up again, because
it's easy to take out, it's hard to put back.
It was the cash flow when we first started, got hit hard, and it was a struggle.
Yeah.
And it's just learning how to incorporate them in your quotes and covering it.
What did you struggle with, Bill?
I think your responsibilities change completely. You're no longer just responsible of yourself and what you do at work. You're responsible for other people and running a project. That's just on the job side of things. Then you've got everything else, like you said, finances. And I think one thing I found quite stressful is, making decisions and taking risks. Because I think to be a good business person, you have to be willing to take risks, but you've got no one else to help you make that decision. And that risk, the risk of that decision you make could either sink you or make you fly. But you have to, you start to realise you can't dither anymore. You're like, I need to make this decision because of X, Y, and Z, and it's how you plan out that decision and weigh up the risks. And at the start, that can put you in a real stupor. That can make you really stressed. And I think that's, I struggle with that.
Especially as you're wholly responsible for that decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you let's say you're thinking, okay, fine, I need this tool. For example, let's say a van. It's going to get me this much more money. But you're looking at it thinking, okay, it's £500 a month in finance. I currently, that I'm going to struggle with that if I stay the same.
I don't get paid that.
Yeah, so it's looking at that, thinking, where does it fit in? But you're never going to get anywhere unless you take that risk. And it's how can you make that risk smaller? It's all those things, and that you can. Yeah, it's a stress that you wouldn't have had before.
I think that's one thing I sort of admire about you three, because you're three individual business owners, and that means that all those decisions have had to be taken individually, and it's not like you've got other directors to bounce those decisions off. How have you found that, Ryan, for you, is like making decisions on your own? Has it been tough, challenging, stressful?
Definitely all of the above, because I'm going back on what Jake said, but it's when you get to a certain point, and like Bill said, it's not just you anymore, and you get to that bit where you think, okay, let's go, it's going well, and then when you move that category of, right, now I'm going to become a business, I'm not this one man band, I'm not just the local guy that's really good at what he does, I'll always ring this guy, so because we were always the cheap guy, because it was just us, the one vehicle we had, all well and good. Then when you step into that realm of, right, now I'm paying all this, you step into a complete clientele.
Yeah.
Because, and then the stress of that, you think, well, now I can't charge what I used to, so I don't even see the original clients I first started with, because I'm, it's...
You're no longer picking whether you're just having Rice Krispies or Cocoa Pops in the morning. It's
yeah, they're still hard decisions.
They are.
Listen, they are still here. But yeah, that's... the stresses of that, really. I mean, and the decision making, that was, it's actually, I must, sorry, I know it's Christmas, guys, but it's nice meeting up with you guys and chatting, because there are things that we're talking about, and I sit there and go, God, I wish I talked to you 4 years ago, because I was sitting at the table thinking, if I do this, what if, that what if, but. What if I don't do it? I'll never know. So decision making has been difficult, but it's getting easier, and I think I guess that's just age and experience.
And also, you as you get more experience, you realise that talking to people is a massive tool.
Brilliant.
Whereas before you'd be like, sort of know what I'm doing. I don't know. You wing a lot of it, and now it's like, actually, there's people who are doing things successfully. How can I pick their brains? Or
I've always gone off that. It's very interesting, because I've always tried to be as honest and upfront as possible, but it's very interesting when you meet somebody else and you think yourself in your head, you're like, cool, I'm not that busy. You think, meet another landscaper and you think, oh, hello there, how you doing? Yeah, flat out, I am flat out. And you think
everyone's flat
I
out
know,
now,
and I think it's, oh my God, I'm not as flat out as them. And then you go around the corner and they go, God, he hasn't even paid his bill. What do you mean? Well, he has no work. You think, why did you tell me that? For the last 3 weeks, I've been panicking, thinking to myself, even you've got work.
Trouble is, it's the default reaction, isn't it? If you say to someone how you're doing, they're always going to say, yeah, really well. He's not going to say, we're doing shit. It's terrible.
It depends who you're talking to.
But most people don't.
No, you're right, though, Joe, you're right, because most people don't. But the moment you do bump into somebody who goes, cool, do you know what? We had a bit of a scary year. You go, cool, and me, and then you can talk about it. And it just, the weight off your shoulders is just beyond. And that I carried a lot of stress with me for that, trying to have this persona, the facade of, business, run it, giving it a go, and running a business. I know how to do the jobs. Running a business isn't something I've never taught, So it's great to have great talking to other people about that. It was very, very recommended.
No, I think there's some good points there. Were there any specific periods in each of your companies where things got to a point where you thought, this is challenging? And this is getting on top of me.
What, this week or last week?
That's every week, isn't it? Yeah, but I mean, are there any sort of periods where you just look back and think, oh, that was tough?
Yeah, well, last year, I mentioned it on a previous podcast, I realised we were losing money halfway through a job, and I had to stick that job out. I had to get the job done to the same standard I'd promised, to the same standard we will always finish a job to. Detail had to be there. The final 5-10%, the best bits still had to go ahead. They hadn't even been started yet. We had just halfway through the main deck, and I'd already hit all my labour costs were gone. And I had to see it out. And I was using my own money every day. We were battled with snow, rain, relentless. This is last year, constant. It all hit me. Everything hit me. The weather, finances. We just moved house, so I'd emptied my bank. And I was in a position where I thought, actually, I have no money. And we got over Christmas. I spent Christmas worrying sick. My VAT bill came through in January, and the VAT bill was more than I physically had in cash to my name. And that's when I thought, oh my God, it can be tough. We had it so good for months and months. And don't get me wrong, I'm not silly with money or finances. I make very careful decisions. But that was the one point where I thought, I need to be on top of this. We got over it. We worked. We paid the bill. It wasn't an issue. But at that time, for that moment, you do panic. You do actually realise that it isn't all perfect. It isn't all glamorous running a company. And
that's it. That's right.
The weather, and you're just looking. You need to get a job finished to get your final bill.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the forecast, and you've got 2 weeks of solid rain, snow, -6, -10, crazy. How are you meant to get that job wrapped up? How are you meant to get your final invoice in time to pay that VAT bill? And it all comes down to cash flow and managing your money throughout the summer, throughout the spring, throughout the autumn, when you are more profitable naturally.
Yeah.
It's looking after the money then for those times, and I wasn't doing that.
But how did it affect you?
It really, really, anxiety was through the roof.
Yeah.
Worrying, straight after the VAT bill's due, my mortgage is due.
Yeah.
My van's due, my insurances are due, and you're thinking it was one after the other. I was just getting hit by another
start
thing.
the year, right?
Yeah, hit constantly. And then it's in those moments, and I spoke to somebody, and if you can get through those moments, that makes you a good company, because a lot of people do pull the plug there and then. And I spoke to tons of people that have given up, they have folded. But if you can get through those times, if you can see them out, if you can get your bills paid and you can get through the other side, I feel like you're worthy of becoming a better company, a good company.
But also I think it's getting through in terms of you personally as well, isn't it? Because it's like there are always techniques and tools that you can use to make sure that you get the company working. But
having working capital.
Yeah, but also having the mental fortitude to be able to deal with it is another thing. How have you found? Do you have any challenging times, Bill, or was there anything else you wanted to cover on?
Constantly. I think I think it's learning from your down times, when things are really on top of you, when you've got a VAT bill encroaching and money's tight and stuff like that, and you have to what could I have done better and dealing with that. But sometimes I'll admit I don't deal with it very well. If I'm struggling and there's not much work in front of me, I have a tendency to catastrophize sometimes. And that's. But I've done so far. I've done all right. If I've had a company for 5 years, a lot of people fold in the first year or second year. So what I've done works, but it's how do I keep myself going and being positive throughout that time, because if I can stay positive throughout those times and actually work on things, then that would help massively. And that's still something I'm trying to learn now. I think it's going to be a long road before I'm Mr.
I think to be honest with you, like I really don't think that you'll ever stop. You'll always keep going. I think it's just the recognition of understanding to put your hand up and go, this is really tough. Because the moment you put your hand up and go, this is really tough, there's about 3 or 4 other people next to you going, yeah, man, it is real tough, I've got you. Once you admit it yourself, and I think that what you said, Jake, about, once you come through that, you have a good company, it's like, yeah, man, but the only reason that company is there is because of you personally who's gone through that thing, and it is stressful, But
catastrophizing doesn't help.
No, it's your coping mechanism, man.
I know. Yeah, it is. It potentially is, but it's.
Sorry, no, because I was thinking that's interesting things about like what coping mechanisms. I think that's probably something that we have come onto in a little bit, because there are some some important things and some ideas. How do you find with your teams, if you know your own issues and how you respond to stress? Are you able to? Well, I suppose one thing is, how do you, the rest of you, respond to stress? And are you able to spot any of the sort of signs where your team members might be, underperforming or being affected by stress in any way? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I always, because I do stuff with mental health myself, and I'm over the years and full of anxiety as usual, and. Because of all the stress of the job and everything like that, you empathise, you appreciate the fact that someone comes in with that rain cloud over your head and you're like, oh, I recognise that rain cloud, so you put systems in place, and I have created an environment at work where we're all honest with each other, we're all upfront with each other, and if someone is feeling a bit down, the conversation in the morning is, how are you, man? And if you don't get the usual response, I always I've got a handshake at work, we always shake hands in the morning, and it's and when we leave in the evening, and you can tell through that handshake whether someone's okay or not, and if they're not okay, it's there's no questions asked. It's everyone in that team is like, hey, this person's got a bit of a cloud over their head today. Let's help out, because you're not always going to be okay. You're not always going to be.
Do you find that some of them want to open up, or if you notice that they're not quite what they usually are, do you find that you can talk to them, or are some of them a bit more withdrawn? And
yeah, I think that every person is different. And because I can't control that at all.
No.
Because and people do what they want. If they want to open up, they don't. But for me, I'm a very open person. I'll always, all of my team know that I have counselling every second week. And I talk about my personal stuff, or I talk about business in them sessions, and it really helps me out. And how many guys have come in and working away, having a bit of a tough time, and I'll pull them aside, we'll have a conversation, and they bring up something, and I'll say, actually, I brought that up in my session last week. Session? Yeah, in my counselling session. And the relief on their face, I was like, yeah, you're not alone. You are not alone. Because that's how I felt for a very long time. And it's like, you're not. We're all, we are all in the same sea with all different sized boats. That's all it is.
I just think it's very important to create an environment at work where everybody feels like they can voice their opinion, they can let you know how they feel, and not, like you said earlier, that not creating a hierarchy where you feel like, I can't approach, like it's like a level playing field throughout, isn't it? And everyone feels like they're at the same. Well, they can just chat with each other and.
Do you think it's getting easier for? And this is not meant to be like a gender thing, but you think there's a lot of men in the actual landscaping and doing the physical work side. Do you find that men have problems opening up about their mental health?
Yeah, I think that is no secret that men historically have had problems talking about how they're feeling. I think that's very well documented, and I think it definitely is changing. I've had counselling before. And like my parents' response to that is like, "Oh, are you depressed or something?" It's like
so silly. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's really silly, and it's a really old school way of thinking.
Go away, yeah.
I still have friends now who have quite old school ways of thinking, and they're always like, "Really? Like, what's going on with you?" It's like, well, actually, it's more just it's a completely unjudgmental space in which you can talk about your issues that you're having, you know, and quite often you can talk to people, but they've got their own opinions. Whereas if you talk to someone, you know, who's a professional, they're not there to give you an opinion. They're there to just give you the space to talk about it and give you, and you know, they give you the tools to climb out of any sticky situation. And you can go in there and you can talk about anything, you know, and it's really, very helpful. And I think the world is changing, and I think people feel a little increasingly as if they can express themselves more. Which is really, really important, because we're all, you know, in some respects, this is just a personal opinion, I do think a stiff upper lip can help sometimes, and not getting stuck into feeling sad and sorry for yourself.
Yes,
I think
I agree.
There's a fine line between that.
Very fine,
because you can get yourself into a right old stupor, and you can be like, oh God, everything's shit, my life's crap, blah, 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 and that doesn't help you. But going, right, do you know what? I need to go and have a counselling session and have a chat with someone, you know, and it's how do you deal with feeling the pressures of life in whichever capacity that is, if it's at work, at home, socially, whatever.
You don't get a manual for this.
No, you don't get a manual for it, but I think the biggest tool in your infantry is talking about it and how do you deal with things and not obsessing and that sort of thing.
I mean, just on the counselling note, you know, I look forward to my sessions whether if I've had a really good day. If I'd have had a blinding day, a blinding week, you know, so because like that, you know, the stereotypical, oh, you must be something wrong with you. It's like, what are you talking about?
What have you got to go to counselling about?
What are you talking about? Go away.
You need to go to counselling. Everyone needs to go to counselling.
But that's the
everybody needs to go get therapy.
Because the reason everyone should go to counselling, in my opinion, is because it's actually giving yourself time. Because you're actually giving yourself time for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Because like you said about the opinions, you know, it's you're in a room, and I call it the very expensive mirror, because you are just talking to yourself. And that is what you're doing, in that you've got someone who's guiding you through the questions, but you are just talking to you. So the value of coming out of a session when I'm in a really good mood or whatever, and talking about something that, you know, may have, you know, tripped me up in the week, or something that was really positive. I think, do you know what, that's really good. And it's recognising that, keep going with that, and making time for myself. Yeah. You know, and giving because we all deserve that time. Yeah. You know, we're only human.
And that's what I mean about talking to a professional, because I've had instances when, you know, you speak to your therapist and you'll be like, you're in a really good place, and you've spoken about all these positive things, and then a few weeks later you're not so good, and they go, hey, well, do you remember last couple weeks ago when you spoke about that? And you're like, actually, I do remember that was a really positive thing. And you're like, just to have someone who, you know, you can talk to about those kind of things, and they can remind you of the times you're happy. You know, there's no one else. Well, I'm sure there are other people that can do that for you, but, you know, a professional, they're trained, you know, and I think it is a really important thing to do.
I recommend to anybody.
For anyone. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Absolutely, anybody and everyone.
What do you think are your, in stressful situations, because we're talking about coping, but I suppose the first thing is, what's your natural reaction to things, and then what would be your preferred coping way? Because I know when, I always found things were like, you know, when things got stressful in my business, my immediate default response was anger and getting frustrated and annoyed and angry.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, so how did I deal with it? And sometimes I express that in ways that I shouldn't have done, and I look back now and think I didn't cope with that very well.
It's learning.
But when I look back now and think, you know, what I've learned over time, and things like, well, there are different ways of coping, and also stuff like, you know, not identifying with stuff. So it's trying to work out, you know, what's your sort of default mode of responding to stressful situations, and do you have a better way of coping or changing that so that it becomes more positive? Because you said earlier on, Bill, didn't you? You said you had a way of coping.
I think it depends entirely on the situation, because some stressful situations I really thrive off and I get a buzz off them. Yeah. When there's loads of challenges and everything's really busy, I'm like, let's go for it, you know, and I'm trying to sort them out, and I get and things are getting sorted out, and I'm really, you know, that's really good. But when it's not so busy, and, you know, and you're trying to, you know, create things, and you're feeling down about it, normally, quite often, my instant reaction is like, I want to get away from this sometimes, you know, I'm like, oh God, and I want to sail off and go to a different country, that sort of thing. That happens to me quite a lot, but then, you know, it's only temporary.
Yeah,
and it's, you know, that
you're not running, what are you running away from?
Yeah, well,
You're going to bring it with you.
No, because you go there. No, he's going to travel with you. Exactly.
Exactly.
Man. That's very true.
There's some real way.
But having said that, I mean, I went away for 3-4 months this year, and that massively helped me put things into perspective because I got to do the symbolic sailing away from my issues, and actually it helped me in more ways than one. Just having a break away from working my arse off for 5 years.
Yeah.
But also, it gave me time to think about what I really want from life and what I enjoy. And that's really a really important thing to do is to stop, and that's what we're saying about therapy.
Go back to it,
and have some time away for yourself, and that is more than just a 2-week holiday in chaos.
And it's on your own, It's just
on your own or with other people. Just time and just giving yourself time on your own is really important. But quite often if I'm feeling stressed but I'm down about it, my instant response is to be like, oh God, but then normally I pull myself out of it by just writing a list and getting things done that need to be done. And once I start doing things, I instantly pick up and feel better because I think with a lot of people, I don't know, but a lot of my friends are the same. Feeling stressed can lead you to procrastinate. And then lots of things don't get done, and before you know it, lots of things are on top of you. And
then you're behind.
And so if you can snub that in the nose really quickly and go, right, let's get this done now before I start procrastinating, then away you go.
But it takes a lot. But it takes a lot. That's got to be credit where credit's due, because there's the recognition. I always say to the guys and myself, the best thing I ever learned was to recognise. It wasn't how like you said, JB. I had maybe still do a short fuse, and it was because something would get stressful, get much, and that would be the first place I'd go. Is raised voice, stressed out, want to get this done. It's like, well, actually, what's that achieve? And the recognition of no one can hold you accountable for your emotions. No one can hold you accountable for your emotions, but you can be held accountable for your words and your actions. So if I do find myself getting in a situation where I'm like, right, getting a bit stressful, it's taking that breath and going.
But that's a clever thing in itself, isn't it? Because most people live so much in their heads and within their thoughts that they believe them immediately. Someone can even take a step back and just notice the fact that, hang on, I'm getting angry.
But that's what that, I think that's the
that's essentially the mindfulness practice, which
staying present.
Just staying present in this, because it's like anxiety is a fear, believing thoughts about the future which might not even happen. And depression is believing, living in the thoughts of the past which have already gone. And you're neither here, you're neither in the that you're in the future or the past. You're never in the present. So if you're in the present, and it's this fucking
your pain body.
But that's it. Good old Eckhart. We're in the power of now. But it's just that moment, because when you think and when you're operating, because you say, Bill, when you're buzzing and you're working really well, that's because you're just in the moment doing your stuff.
Yeah, because you're present and you're dealing with issues that are being thrown at you at the time.
You're not worrying about the future or the past. You're just getting on with it.
Yeah,
and it's like it's trying to notice that these thoughts are not things that don't believe them all the time. If you spoke to yourself or to someone else the way you speak to yourself at times...
Yeah, you'd never... They'd lay you out, I reckon.
They'd lay you out.
Do. Yeah, they would do.
That self-talk you say, Christ, I'm a failure, I'm the worst businessman possible. It's like, never have that talk.
Who said that?
Never ever have that talk.
But it's that recognition, that I call it the white ember feeling. Where, for me, when something happens, it could be anything. It could be one of the guys shouting at me saying we need more muck or we need more this, and he's gone around the corner. I haven't really heard him, and suddenly I'm anxious, going, "Is that me? Is he saying to me?" And suddenly this feeling comes across me, and I feel these white embers in my stomach, and I just stop and go, hey, yo, that thing's happening. Just why? Go around the corner. Hey man, what's up? Oh yeah, I said he fell over a bit wheelbarrow muck. He's talking about someone else completely different. Yeah. I'm thinking, oh wow, I would have sat for so long going, oh, is that me? I'm sorry. Just let it out. It's the recognition. That is because you can't people are like, I need to fix this, I need to do this better. Do what? What's that mean? I need to be better at this. You don't know what that looks like. You don't know what that looks like because you've never done it before. So the first thing the time that it clicked for me was when something happened to me and I went, oi, and suddenly my body went, right, that's it. And I went, what am I doing? Yeah. What is this? Hang on, what's this for a second? And I made a choice. The thing is, because I do. Everyone has a choice.
Everyone has a choice.
Everyone has a choice, and and the thing is, the difference is, I made a choice. Don't get me wrong, I still got angry, but it was controlled anger. There's a difference,
and it's also having the ability to notice it. Because the trouble is, we're just conditioned by everything in our history. We've been conditioned since we were kids to react in a certain way, and because of that, everything that we respond to becomes habitual. It's an instant habit. So if a trigger happens, we're so conditioned to respond in that way.
Yes,
and the clever bit about the mindfulness side and the being that is just to be able to notice before you immediately go off into default mode network of anger or stress or withering away. Because all the events that happen in the world, I mean, people think, landscaping is stressful. No, landscaping is not stressful. Mm-hmm. It's just a neutral event. You decide whether that event is stressful or not. Yeah. Because if you had the same event in front of 20 different people, you'll get 20 different reactions. Yeah, so it's not the event, it's you.
You have to stop the snowballing effect, don't you?
Yeah.
Of letting your thoughts run away and letting it build momentum before you know it. It's just stuck looking at that. It's, okay, this is how I'm feeling, let me deal with that now, let me address it.
And the only thing, they're talking about talking about our team and stuff like that, it's that communication. I do not stand for, if someone comes in who's not feeling up for nothing, and someone snaps at another person, I will absolutely not. You are full right to be upset today, but you have no right in your actions. No chance. So I won't have any of that. But the thing is, at that moment when someone slaps, I'm like, hey, pull them aside, and the first thing I do is big hug. Give me a hug, and I won't let them go until they let go of a breath. I'm like, what's up, man?
That's enough to reduce your stress.
Yeah, me hugging.
How about you, Jake? As the world's most relaxed man, I can't believe you ever getting stressed.
No, I don't anymore. I do.
I was thinking he's crushed it. He's won it. Yes. What are you talking about? You're like, no, I don't.
In all honesty, I was a paranoid, stressed, anxious wreck last Christmas, and the best decision I've ever made is doing a job, decking, that I have complete control over. Because when I sat down last Christmas and I actually worked out where things were going wrong, what I was stressed about, why I was constantly anxious, it was the fact that I was putting high value jobs in other people's hands, and I was taking on jobs that were probably they were already out of my comfort zone, but structural jobs and jobs that had a lot of responsibility. But quite often these jobs were done by structural engineers and stuff like this, but I was taking on jobs that I weren't ready for, and bigger jobs like huge landscaping projects, and the amount of fear that ran through me because I was out of control, because I can't do every part of that job. I do need to rely on other tradespeople. I do need to rely on people in my own team doing jobs that I'm not the best at doing, and delegating work. And you're delegating work, so that person's in charge of that part of the job. However, you're still responsible for that person. And the fear of things going wrong, and and what it causes, and it causes a snowball effect. And
now doing just a dick,
Yeah, now I do something, and everybody that does it is skilled in that job.
Yeah.
It has really, really reduced my stress. And if you did meet me a year ago whilst doing my job,
sorry.
I wasn't enjoying myself at all. But I love what I do now. I do love what I do, and it's so important because I said to my wife, I'll take half a pay cut just to enjoy what I'm doing.
Find a job you love and never work a day again, they say.
Yeah.
I'm still looking, mind you.
Yeah, and so making the decision to specialise in something that I have complete control over, from start to finish. It's all in house now. There's no outsourcing.
So you feel
there's no
more
need
in
for that.
control.
I'm in control. I'm on top of it. I know the answers to all the questions.
Yeah.
I know the answers to all of the. Well, there's not many issues. You overcome them before you get them. You predict any issues. You can see it, and the stuff I was doing previously in the big landscaping world, there was a lot of pressure involved.
Yeah.
Especially when you're covering up pipe work of like a £100,000 swimming pool, and before you're covering up a lot of very important kit with concrete, and that's all encased. But you're outsourcing some of the concrete work, and you've got the pump there, you've got everything there. If anything went wrong under that concrete pad, even now, I am responsible for that.
Yeah.
And it was just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
No, fair play. Okay, we're getting towards the end of this one, and the one thing I suppose we should put is the obligatory disclaimer. We're not here to issue anything in terms of medical advice. This is just some of the experience that we've had and what issues we've had and how we cope. So we hope that's of use to you. Are there any other sort of final comments and things that you either want to leave the listeners with as we go through?
I'd say the one thing I wish the one thing I wish someone told me or I listened to, let me put it that way, so I'm sure someone told me, but I wish I listened to, is don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
That is the one thing out of all of this, is just you're your own worst enemy. Because like you said earlier, if you spoke to somebody the same way you speak to you, there's no way you'd have any other friends at all.
Yeah, precisely.
So it's very interesting. So the one thing I would say is just don't be kind. Just be kind to you because you deserve it. That's all I'd say.
Jake?
So I would say if you have a conscience and you feel responsible and you feel if you have a good conscience about how you want to leave work, how you want to make others feel, it actually means you're a good person. And there are people out there that have no issues about how they leave work, how they leave a job, how they leave a customer relationship. We care about that. We do have guilt, we do have fear, anxiety, everything like that, because we care about what we do.
Yeah.
And I found that after talking to somebody, and a year ago I was speaking with somebody about these issues, he did actually say to me, if I ever get my garden done, I would want you to do it because you care so much. And the reason you have a conscience is because you do care.
Okay.
So just bear that in mind when you are worrying about your work. It means you're good and you care about your work.
Trust yourself there.
Yeah, you're a
Nice,
good person.
nice. Bill, anything final comment you want to add?
I would just say, if you are feeling stressed and feeling overwhelmed, which is a natural part of owning a business, just give yourself time to reflect on all the good things that you've done and see why and how you've got to where you are today, and use it as a tool going forward. And don't be afraid to take time out if you need to. There's no point in breaking your balls and not being very productive when all it takes is a couple of days just to get yourself straight and look into why you're feeling in a certain way and acting on it.
Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. I think with all these things, everything is transient. Everything changes. It comes and goes. So you may have a short period, periods where everything seems overwhelming. It'll change. It'll come and go. It will get better. So if ever you're feeling down or whatever, talk to someone first. Don't suffer in silence. And that's probably the best we can offer from our own experiences. So I think that's been a really interesting chat, and we, it's a tough world out there, but we can cope, we can do it well. We've all got good businesses, we've all got good ideas, and there's a lot of great people out there. As Ryan says, be kind to yourself, and be kind to everybody else. Be kind to everybody else because, you can't just be kind to the people you like. Try and help everyone, and then that will make the world a better place. So we wish you all the best. Great stuff, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
See you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.